Hello, Michael Grove from Evolved Ministry. So, this is Conscious Movie Reviews, and I'm going to do the movie Lucy. This, for me, was a highly anticipated movie. So, just coming off from the very beginning, I can say for myself, I will say that this is one of the most perfect movies I've ever seen. In terms of not only visual qualities, the storyline, and dialogue, and the way the whole movie was created and the way it operated was absolute perfection for me. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that may dislike this movie for a lot of reasons. This movie requires that you remain engaged with it. It is a movie that also expects you to think critically from scene to scene, point to point, so that you understand the depth of what is occurring in the movie itself. When it comes to the way that the story is told, one has to really be on top of their game. They have to actually watch, and they have to be, they have to maintain a certain amount of, I think the best way to look at it is your attention span has to remain on the movie. You cannot actually step away from it and then come back to it and think that you're going to be able to understand what is going on. What I find interesting about it is there is a certain amount of knowledge that is required to even, I think, understand this movie. So this is where they may lose some people, but I do believe that the storyline itself does explain things well enough that any layman can understand what is actually happening. The only problem is that if you do walk away from the movie and then come back, you will probably be lost as to what is occurring, what's transpiring. So in this particular movie, they do the same thing. It kind of has the same premise as Limitless. And Limitless tells the story of the perspective of a person who was an average everyday person who ends up getting access to all of this universal knowledge through the use of taking a drug. Now, Limitless shows that he has to take the drug over and over to get the effects, whereas Lucy, it's only done one time, and in terms of the way they tell the stories from this point forward, it's completely different. Limitless, as a matter of fact, I think Lucy picks up where Limitless kind of left off and then expands upon it much more. So, but what is amazing about this particular movie, again, is they show the transition, how Lucy goes from being very fearful, and then the next stage that happens is she goes from being very fearful to extremely confident. And the next thing that happens is she starts to, as her brain increases its capacity, she starts to discover that she has more and more access and greater access to these abilities that begin to manifest as a result. And so it's amazing how the movie itself will take something like that and then tie in so many philosophical questions that are asked by the movie itself on behalf of the people of this earth. What have we done with the knowledge that we have? What have we done with the brain capacity that we currently use? What have we done with it? So, I hope that more types of movies like this are made for the future, because again, it's a highly interactive, highly engaging movie which requires critical thought on your behalf in order for you to really understand the depth. So what we're going to do now is we're going to visit some scenes that really help to define this movie. I'm not going to give everything away to you, of course, but there's going to be a lot of things here that I believe that very much correlate with much of what Evolved Ministry teaches. And so these are certain things that I'd like to throw out there and maybe give a tiny primer or explanation of, so it kind of whets the appetite for when you actually see the movie. Okay, let's get started. One of the most amazing features of the movie is the fact that it shows her transformation. You see a massive transformation from the Lucy at the beginning of the film, where she is very insecure, very fearful, and had been put into a situation in which she felt she had no control, to what ends up happening towards the end of the movie. And so I'm just going to take you through a bit of a cycle here of, or not a cycle actually, just kind of what actually transpired from one point to the next and how this particular drug was able to open up all of these ports within her mind where she was able to access so much knowledge and information that she became her own creator. She became the creator of her reality instantaneously. And that she had nothing within her. Once the drug began to do its job, it basically, well, I would call it not destroying, but removed every portion of her ego, which served as a blockade for her being able to access greater points of knowledge. So here's the beginning, basically, of where she finds herself in a really rough situation, a tight spot, and the director just does a brilliant job in showing how the predatorial system is now closing in on her.
Miss, may I help you?
Yes. I'm here for, Mr. Jane.
Yes. Who should I say is here?
They work with the metaphors very well.
Richard? Richard sent me.
张先生你好，在柜台有位女士要找您，就一起来的。Mr. Jang still wants to know your name.
Lucy?
Lucy what?
It's just Lucy. If he could be quick, because I have
Just a
to.
second, 我来translate。张先生他说他叫做 Lucy，他是愿意告诉我这么多而已。好的。Mr. Jang is on his way. Stay right here.
Can I sit?
Mr. Jang said you need to stay right here. I think it's better if you stay right here. Excuse me. Region Hotel.
And now is the escalation.
那我可以请问查一下你班机是什么转机？应该是延长飞机之前，机场专员都会照顾你的。
Brilliantly done.
请问一下你班机是直飞还是转机？出去！站上！
So that gives a good it gives you a good operating idea of just how bad her situation is. So now, after having been drugged into this horrible situation of which she basically feels as if she has no control over, at this point she's put face to face with the reaction of the drug itself. Okay, so at this point, though, she has no idea that this particular substance is going to be going into her body. She's completely oblivious to it. But she gets to see the effects. These same effects can often be described by people who've taken, really heavy hallucinogens. They go completely crazy if their minds are not ready for it. Okay, so you'll see in this particular scene that she goes through her own version of that same madness. Okay, the particular drug sends her mind warping. In fact, it does it so much so that it's actually creating effects upon gravity and everything else within this particular room. So her mind goes basically to the furthest reaches out that it's ever been. And then she has to piece everything back together from that point. So, now we're coming on to a scene where everything is completely changed for her. At this point, she's completely confident. There's absolutely no fear within her. And she just calmly tells the police officer while she's basically engaging in all sorts of chaos. The reason why the chaos is occurring, though, is because she has an important date that she needs to get to with a bunch of physicists. And so this was her way of transferring her knowledge before... and I'm not going to say anything more about that. So, you'll just have to see the movie, but this will give you an idea of where she finally goes to, where her mind is, and how nothing can faze her at this point. She is very secure in herself and knows precisely what she needs to do.
We never really die.
Now for me, one of the most amazing parts of the movie Lucy is when she connects into love. When she fully allows herself, she basically takes the time to call her mother and then has a very powerful acting moment here. It's amazing. Scarlett Johansson just really, I don't think there was any other actor or actress that could have pulled this role off, especially the way she did. And she has this amazing scene as she talks with her mother. Afterwards, they show that this full connection allows her to see the energy moving through things and emanating through objects and such. So let's have a look.
Well, thanks for calling out of the blue like this. Your father's going to be sad he missed you. He isn't home from the gym yet. Usually you call us in the morning.
Mom,
Yes?
I feel everything. I can feel the gravity. I can feel the rotation of the earth. The heat leaving my body. The blood in my veins. I can feel my brain. I just want to tell you that I love you, Mom and Dad.
Sweetie.
And I want to thank you for the 1,000 kisses that I can still feel on my face. I love you, Mom.
This is just a sign of that enhanced connection. Just a part of what happens when a person begins that process of evolution. And this is just another example of her ability to see energy as she moves further and develops with her mind.
Me too.
You lose your keys or something?
Okay, finally, one of the most amazing parts of the movie is when Lucy, we'll just say she does a bit of a travel, and she comes face to face with basically the first, or mankind's first ancestor, which is known as Lucy. So Lucy comes face to face with Lucy. And they have this moment which is very reminiscent of Michelangelo's piece called The Creation. And so what is amazing about it is during this particular journey, she comes face to face with Lucy. They have a moment which basically sends her throughout space and time, and she's able to basically be a part of creation as it's occurring. It's a very interesting portion of the movie. Now, since I don't want to give too much more away, that's all I'm going to allow you to see here. But just know that this is probably one of the most important movies that's ever been made. So, if you're wanting to see an amazing movie, a visual extravaganza, as well as one great story, I would definitely highly suggest Lucy. Again, I give it a 5 out of 5 hearts. And like I said before, this is not a movie that you want to cheat yourself on. You're not going to be able to just turn it off, come back, or let it run, and then you come back and know what's going on with this particular movie. This one is one of those that you really have to pay attention to, and it demands a higher attention span. You really have to, you're going to have to dedicate yourself to this one. This is not just an easy movie to watch. And I can say this, in my 41 years of living, I've never been to a movie theater to where once the movie was over, everyone sat there in silence. It was amazing to watch because, not only was it amazing to watch because the crowd, we went to see it twice, but the crowd was probably the most diverse crowd I'd ever seen. So, had a lot of international people there. I had never seen that diverse of a crowd. And then when I watched how this movie basically took what you would think of as a very loud crowd to start off with and completely silenced that crowd, and then by the end of the movie, the crowd was so dumbfounded as to what they saw that there were no words. They all sat there quietly. And not one person rushed to get up to run out. And then as we were walking out of this particular theater, you were hearing everyone just raving about how amazing the movie was. Now, I surmise that there's going to be many people out there that will dislike this movie because it does require thought. Okay? Again, this is not going to be a standard stereotypical superhero movie where they're just throwing a bunch of effects at you and then throwing, a comic book tale. This is something that, they throw a bunch of philosophical questions at you, and the fact of the matter is, I think that they're expecting answers out of people at this point, because they're saying that we have not done much with the capacity that we've all been currently operating on, and that maybe we should step things up a bit. This particular planet has a lot of pollution, has a lot of war, has a lot of aggression, just a lot of things that are basically driving our civilization to a peak that will plummet. So, these are things to keep in mind, and just know that this movie is probably one of the best movies I've ever personally seen. I can say I've seen a whole lot out there, and most people my age, or heck, I'd say even now, by the time most people are 25, they've seen so many movies or television shows that they might as well be media experts themselves. But this one, I think, will define the way really good filmmakers will soon approach the way they do movies. Eternal love.